Why is it that some cars that were once common on our roads and even pretty ordinary are now worth top dollar? And what does this mean for the cars of today? Are you right now driving around in a future classic? Welcome to RAC's Horizons podcast. I'm Mike Bartlett. Today, to help us understand what makes some cars more valuable as they age and how to pick one before it reaches classic or cult car status, we'll be talking to classic car expert Simon McGrath. Simon, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Mike, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I'm glad to hear it. Your YouTube channel dubs you the classic car dude.
I know, it's a bit cheesy, isn't it? But
it works. But what are we talking about when we're talking about classic cars? I mean, are we talking about cars that are rare or expensive, or is it more about character, do you think?
What I think is it's to do with capturing someone's attention, their imagination. I was going to say material attachment, that's called ownership, but no, more of a esoteric attachment to something. And it might be memories, it could be demographic, which is huge in the classic car movement, or it could be sort of racing heritage, or there's a lot of things that make it up. So sort of the more modern generation now is going towards Japanese classics, and there's a huge movement towards what they call JDM, which stands for Japanese Domestic Market. And these are all weird cars that we never got here, and we used to deride, and now we're like,
right.
And that's all to do with the age of the people that are interested in them.
Okay. So
not
in that case,
necessarily the cars.
It's someone looking for something that's particular to them, or just unusual, a bit quirky.
Yeah. A lot of Japanese cars of that period also are high performance.
Okay.
And a lot of the films that came out recently, like The Fast and the Furious and that whole franchise, have spawned a huge amount of interest in things like Nissan GTRs, Toyota Supras, Subaru WRXs, all that sort of supercar Japanese stuff, Honda NSXs, have created this massive amount of interest and romance around it. But what I'm trying to describe to you is another example would be the early MG movement. And that was brought around by the GIs based in the UK, in England, buying MG TCs, TDs, that sort of stuff, early T-Series MGs effectively, which were nothing like what was available in America. So America didn't even have a sports car. They were big cars meant for long, straight roads you go very fast on, but there's no corners. And England's a massive, hedges and tight corners. So the GIs fell in love with MGs, and that spawned a whole movement of Americans coveting British sports cars.
And is that because it's something exotic, though, something that's different, out of the ordinary?
Look, I think it is. It's all to do with imagery. There is characteristics which are unique to them. Firstly, the sizing. British cars, particularly of the period, are a lot smaller than American cars of the period, by virtue of the road system and the style of roads you have in America and the style you have in the UK. So you've got some key characteristics which make them different, but it's also imagery. I'm sure a lot of leather gloves and peak caps were sold at the same time. So that applied at this 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s even. Now MG was starting to lose steam around that time. You had Triumph making things like the TR6, which is a really handsome car, Italian body, straight six-cylinder motor. And these are still being bought a lot by the Americans until the Japanese came along.
Right, okay.
So what I'm saying is these cars represent periods in time, just like fashion. Mm-hmm. Certain dresses, certain collar lengths, bell bottoms, skinny pants, all represent periods in time. Well, it's the same with the automotive world.
Okay.
It really represents a period of time.
So the idea of what is a classic changes with time. It's an evolving idea.
Well, what's happening is that those cars that I was describing that the GIs loved after the Second World War are now really hard to sell because there's no audience for them. So a classic is only a classic for a period in time, not for eternity.
Right. So there's not enough of that demographic left to create high demand.
So if you have one of those, you go, well, who am I going to sell it to? They're all dead. Or they're selling their collections like I am.
Right.
I've got friends. I'm also super interested in motorcycles. In fact, I'm addicted. And I'm a recovering Ducati owner. Okay. And I've got friends, particularly in the eastern states, who have large collections of British bikes. and they're starting to peel them off and sell one or two. But the truth is, they're finding it really hard to find markets for them because all the other guys with collections of British bikes are now starting to sell them as they're getting older, and they want to simplify their lives and their collection, maybe cut down to one or two bikes. And so it's demographics, it's capturing a period in time. There's so many elements to it, but some things absolutely stand out as being classics, and it might be their relationship to a film.
Okay.
Like such as Bullet with Steve McQueen. And so that Mustang of that period, I think it was 1968, boy, it sold for massive amounts of money.
Still does.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it'd be good to talk a bit more later, perhaps, about how that idea of classic is connected with a moment in time, or is connected with pop culture. But you mentioned there your own collection. Let's just touch on that for a second.
Mike, I'm a very ill man.
How large is your collection at present,
It's
Simon?
not large at the moment. I just moved home and I've been culling. But I can run through some of the cars that I've really loved and enjoyed.
So you've been culling cars, because I get told off having too many shirts, but I have to cull my shirt collection. How many cars are we talking about?
So at the moment, I only have two cars.
Okay.
And they're quirky. And one of them is a Lotus Europa, which is Lotus is English.
Mm-hmm.
This one's it's a 1969 car. It was built by some guys in Perth to run in classic car rallies. But it's a beautiful thing. It's the third mid-engined car to be produced in the world. Along with the Matra and the Lamborghini Miura, and then the Lotus Europa. So it has a fineness of design. If you appreciate engineering, you're going to dig this car. It also looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. Corners like you wouldn't believe, and these sort of things for me are interesting. And then because I really am eccentric, Mike, I have a 1992 Volvo, the square brick.
Quite a contrast.
Yes, but this is a turbo Volvo. And they only made, they didn't sell particularly well because they tarnished their image by then.
Right.
But this thing is a bit of a rocket ship.
So it's a turbo brick.
Yeah, turbo brick, yes.
Right.
You can call it a turbo brick. They're my daily hacks. And I've got a 1968 Yamaha DT1, which is the motorcycle that invented the trail bike.
Okay.
And that's why it's famous for inventing the trail bike and recognized as such. And then I've got a Ducati Passo, which is 750cc V-twin Italian bike. It makes a beautiful noise, but it's cranky, and we're having an affair. And then I've got a Moto Guzzi Mark II Le Mans, which is a 1980 motorcycle, and it's a bit ratty, and it once again sounds beautiful, and the riding position is challenging for your wrist because you're leaning forward on them. But I wouldn't swap it. Okay. It's not happening.
All right. Let's pull back from that slightly and return to your passion for these vehicles, these classic cars and bikes. Where did that come from? What's the seed of your addiction?
I was probably 9 years old, and I'm from North Wales, and I can remember running across a road, and a Mark II Jaguar, to this day, I can remember it was a Mark II Jaguar, braked to avoid killing me, running me over effectively. And I think that was it. And then a friend of my parents had a Mark II Jag, and he had sunglasses and a plastic cigar in the glove box, and we'd get to sit in this car, and it was all wood paneling, leather, beautiful Wilton carpets, and it sounded great. Sound is a big part of classic car ownership, and it kind of was magic.
Okay.
And I went, I dig this.
You were smitten.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think a Mark II Jag is probably my dream car. And I wonder, does everyone have a dream classic car? Is there one car for everyone?
I'd say there is. There's the most lusted after object. And for me, it's a Ferrari GTO.
Okay.
Nick Mason, the drummer from Pink Floyd, owns one.
Yeah.
And he bought it so many years ago that he didn't pay a lot for it. But now, gosh, I think Giorgio Armani sold his probably about 10 years ago for 32 million or something. So these are seriously, desirable
that's going to stay on the wish
cars.
list, that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's up on the wish list.
Yeah.
I've seen one, I've sat in one, but I've never driven one.
Okay.
I have been for a ride in a 275 GTLM Ferrari, though, which is kind of like the model after the 250 GTO.
Yeah.
And by a guy it was owned by a guy called John Ma in Melbourne, who was an engine builder. And he was with friends, and he said, and I was like admiring, he said, "You want to go for a ride? Come on, let's go for a ride." And he drove me around the streets of Melbourne, and oh my God, it's amazing. The sound, the revs, the smell, the whole thing,
Yeah.
just sensational. So sensory and so Italian.
Okay.
And that's the other thing. Each nation has its personality, and it's expressed in furniture design, car manufacturing. These are all ways of expressing the personality of a nation.
Okay. And again, with the classic cars, that sense of the aura, I suppose, that it
Sure.
has, and perhaps
Yeah.
which can be exotic. Let's pull back from the luxury models to something a little more local, perhaps a little more accessible. What are some cars that were once common on WA roads, perhaps, and perhaps weren't given the respect that they were due at the time, that have become classics or cult favourites?
That's a hard question to answer. What I did with a couple of mates, we sat at a kitchen table and we went through a list of things we thought might become classic. So I've chosen a list of stuff that I remember at least, okay? That's how current it is.
Are these cars that are future classics, that will become classics?
I believe so.
Okay.
And
All right.
not all, there's hits and misses.
Okay.
So if you want to start with the Nissan 350Z, and it's now the 370Z, it's a Grand Touring car. It's sort of more towards the size of a sports car.
When's this car from?
Okay, so currently you can go and buy a new 370Z now,
Okay.
I believe.
Yep.
A sports car, V6, Revy, Japanese build great engines.
Okay.
And this is an exciting car. I think there's a market for them. They didn't sell a lot in Western Australia, but internationally they sold quite a few. A car that's been brought in through the grey import system is another Nissan called a Nissan Cube.
Mm-hmm.
And they are literally a square.
I've seen those. They're
I
bizarre
adore
looking
them.
cars.
They are bizarre looking cars.
Yeah.
And they're asymmetric. So the back window on one side comes around the car.
Yeah.
And so you don't have a rear, what they call a C pillar, the very back pillar. On one side, it's completely missing, and the glass goes round the side.
Yeah, yeah.
I love them. I looked at buying one, but they have a constant velocity gearbox, which are troublesome. So that turned me away from them. But underneath, they're a Nissan Micra, so they're pretty basic engine, mechanicals.
But you love the aesthetic. But
I love the aesthetic.
You're not sold
and they
on
drove
the
pretty well
engine.
too.
Okay.
But I just, dug a bit deep. A car that I've had a BMW. They produced a sports car called a Z3, and then they made the model after it called a Z4. Now, BMW's big ticket item, the one that's most coveted, is the M3s. They're a 3 Series car, which is a mid-size coupe, and BMW loved motor racing, and they got all their hot bits and they piled them into what was essentially a shopping car and turned it into this legend. And that's the M3. And they go through a series of many, many years, and you can still buy an M3 today, I think. Anyway, so they got the mechanicals from this mid-series car, and they put them into a sports car. And the reason they did, in the back room, there's all these wonderful stories with cars. In the back room, they have the skunk works. These are the
Skunk Works.
where the guys come in after work to work on cars because they just love design, they love engineering, and they come back. Anyway, so the story of the Z3 is that, which is their small sports car, the engineers wanted to put this super engine, I can't remember the numerology of the engine, but it's a 3-litre Vario Ram, Vario Cam, 4 valves per cylinder, twin cam, like a sensational engine, won International Motor of the Year for 3 years in a row, which is quite an achievement because everybody wants to win it in the car world. And they stuffed that into this tiny car, and then they put a roof on it, so they look like bread vans. Mm-hmm. And that was all done in the back room. The BMW knew nothing of it. None of the boys around the boardroom table, none of the accountants, none of the CEOs, none of those guys knew anything about it until they brought it out. And they said, look, we want to put this motor in this car because it demonstrates what an amazing motor it is in a small car. And then to do that, you have to put a roof on it, because if you can imagine you have a shoebox and you take the lid off the shoebox, and now you can get that shoebox and you can go like this. Mm-hmm. Now that's what roadsters are like. Open top cars. They're like a shoebox without a lid on it. So that you've got this floppiness. The car will not steer as when you put forces from all directions. You're accelerating, turning corners, braking, etc. It will be sort of fudgy. not sharp, which is what sports cars are all about. They're about precision and the joy of driving. And so then by putting a roof on this car, which is a new design, it's now like a shoebox with a roof on it. So if you try and twist that shoebox, it's rigid. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did with this super engine. And so the Z3 is already on its way up in terms of value and future classic.
And when was that first released?
They were late 90s.
Okay.
And the one that preceded that was a Z4 M Coupe. Now, I've had both. I've had a Z3 M Coupe and a Z4 M Coupe. And the Z4 is not yet coveted like the Z3 was. So you can pick up Z3 M Coupes are hovering around $80,000 to $120,000, mm-hmm. which is quite a lot of money for a car made in the late 90s. Mm. And a Z4 is currently one of them on the market at the moment, which I'm looking at too much. That is, I could probably pick it up for mid-50s. And technically, the Z4 is a better car than the Z3.
Yeah. And that's a range that started in the 70s.
Yeah, I think it... what happened was Mazda Design Studio in California went and bought a Lotus Elan and an MGB, I think it was. So this is talking, they started this in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And by the time it came out, I think it was 84. Now, I could be totally wrong on this, and I'm happy to be. But the first Mazda MX-5, the guy who was behind it, he's a Japanese Californian, had to beg Mazda to produce it. It was like, let me make this thing. And they said, I'll never sell, there's no market for it. Yep. And they said, okay, well, he kind of somehow had some influence. He took world's best-selling sports car. Wow. Bang, instantaneous success. And it's all to do with its brilliance, its packaging. So it's a small car. It's light, highly responsive, great mechanicals. Mazda make great cars. It's a simple... 4-cylinder engine. It's light. It's got a 5-speed gearbox. Later ones are 6 speeds. But if you're into engineering and design, you look at an MX-5 and you go, "Wow, that is something." And yet it's bread and butter. Mm-hmm. It's common. Yeah. And so bringing that sort of level of design, thought, engineering to the public is what the MX-5 does. I love them.
So there's still cars that are very common. So there's not an issue of supply versus demand.
There's so many MX-5s to choose from.
Okay.
A more common car that's more current, which may seem strange, but it's once again to do with demographics. The Toyota Hilux.
Right.
Now I've got two sons. One's 25, one's 21. My 21-year-old, he lusts after a Hilux.
Isn't that interesting?
And all the guys of that age, it's kind of to do with they're sort of tough.
Okay.
They're high off the ground. You can see across traffic. You sort of feel commanding when you're driving a tall car. Yeah. The early ones are really gutless, like insanely gutless, dangerously slow, early Hiluxes. Yeah. But not anymore. Toyota's racing division is TRD, and they've got quite an influence in the Hilux market. And the Hiluxes are more car than ute, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, I think that Hiluxes, some particular Hiluxes will be absolute classics, mainly because the kids for today that are just leaving school will last after them probably the next 20 years. Right. Reminisce about their Hiluxes, Mike.
So do you think your kids last after the Hilux because they remember them being around when they were younger? There's some attachment to them?
Quite possibly. There's like 6 parked in our street.
Right, okay.
Yeah, quite possibly.
There's something that's as you say, been around for generations.
Now, in this whole... For a while there, the number one selling car in America was a Honda Civic. And it was replaced pretty quickly by the F100, the Ford pickup truck. Yep. And the equivalent now in Australia is the Ford Ranger and the BT50. I think it's the same car, but it's badged differently because Mazda were making them for Ford. So the BT50 was the Ford Ranger. But everyone drives pickups today. It's the car. In fact, the whole idea of a station wagon is now completely defunct because of the four-wheel drive.
And all the monster utes.
The monster utes, yeah. So I think Ford Raptors particularly, some of the Ranger market, Hiluxes. Now, there was a car that they're common. You see plenty of them. The FJ Cruiser, which is a retro, recently produced four-wheel drive, but the body was a retro of a 1970s Toyota Land Cruiser, because somehow there's nostalgia and people were interested in wanting the vibe. Now I think they'll be classics, and they even made them in the same colours that they made them back in the 70s.
Okay.
So it's, the car companies are playing this game too.
I think there is that awareness, obviously, in the term classic. There is nostalgia built into it as well, and a lot of the things that we think of as being consistently thought of as classics or iconic. I suppose cars like the Mini Cooper or the VW Beetle or are attached to a particular time. That people think of the 60s when they think of the Mini Cooper, and then the swinging 60s, all that sort of cool, the cool Britannia that's attached to that. I mean, with cars like that, have they always been iconic? Have they always been classic? Can you tell straight away, or is it something that has to have nostalgia attached to it?
I'm going to say you use the example of the Mini.
Yeah.
Now, the Mini, Alex Izagonis was the designer with a guy called Sir Alex Moulton. Anyway, these are clever guys. They threw out the rule book. So when the Mini arrived, you had the Archbishop of Canterbury driving a Mini, the Rolling Stones driving Mini, the Beatles driving Minis. You had mums getting their shopping in Minis. It was the universal every person car. It literally put UK on wheels. And then when they started making hot versions, Cooper S's and Mini Coopers, it won the Monte Carlo Rally. Previously, cars were thought of differently. And the concept of the Mini was so radical from a departure from what was considered normal car design, instantaneous classic.
Right.
They got the rule book and they just tore it up. And some of the things they did, they managed to have the seams of the car on the outside of the car. So it saved space, but the seams of the car were welded on the outside. Then they had previously motors and gearboxes were separate things and bolted together, and they both had lubrication. With the Mini, they put the gearbox underneath the motor, and it shared the oil that was in the sump for the engine. Right. And then out of each side comes these little drive shafts which drive the front wheels. It had 10-inch wheels, the first Mini. This is unimaginable. And it was all about packaging, and yet they were really spacious inside. The Mini was like a TARDIS.
Yes. No, I've
literally
one.
Amazing. Yeah. So that alone, it was a technical, absolute tour de force. Amazing achievement. And it set the format for front-wheel drive cars to go on to this day, with the motor sitting on top of the gearbox. And the Italians were dabbling with it, but the gearboxes were still separate to the engines at this time. So the Mini is kind of like, it's every person's car, and it goes and wins Monte Carlo Rally. Right. It won Bathurst in 1965, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Which is 1,000 kilometres, 500 miles at the time.
You can do the shopping and win the Grand Prix.
It's amazing car.
Yeah.
Interestingly, BMC never made a profit on any of them.
I heard that.
And the designers, Sir Alex Moulton, took a royalty, I think, might have been a shilling per car, I think, made more out of them than BMC did.
Well, I'm glad someone made money out of an extraordinary design. But that's an example of a classic car, and I'm not sure how common you feel this is.
The Beetle is another.
Doing something different, though. And I suppose the Beetle is an example.
The government at the time, Germany, there was a car manufacturer called Tatra, which was Czechoslovakian, and genius. Like, these guys are scientists. They're like in the skunk works again. And they were dabbling with rear-engined cars, air-cooled. They had air-cooled V8s and that sort of stuff, which is unbelievable. And the Germans thought that was very good ideas. And so Ferdinand Porsche was given the task of designing the Beetle and did an amazing job. Literally, it was, I think it might have been beaten now by the Corolla, but for years it was the most manufactured car ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And a car that looks like nothing else on the road.
Totally. Well, it does look like Tatras.
Right.
But not many people
I've never seen a
Tatra.
Yeah.
So it's like, but yeah, the design familiarity is quite profound.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is that important too? So cars that are doing something different, to innovating, and that simply look only like themselves. You think that's a good ingredient for a classic car?
Oh, it is a good ingredient.
Yeah.
Now, in the late 70s, Toyota was really on the rise. And Ford had made a great success of the Mustang, and they have a swoopy back, like a very long, it's called a fastback. And Toyota realized that these cars looked good. They excited people. So they made a Celica and they're now they're called Mustang Celicas now because they look so much like a Mustang. What I'm trying to say is car companies recognize that as well. If they can get the shape right, a lot of things will come together. I really like early BMW stuff. It's got a beautiful ratio between the mass of the body, the airiness of the glass, and then the bright work on it, the stainless steel, polished aluminium.
I'm interested, I guess, how that comes back to what you were talking about before with the changing demographics and the way that certain cars are connected with times. I mean, new drivers in their 20s, are they still wanting Minis? Are they still wanting Beetles? Are they?
Yeah, we where you came across me was my reporting for Classic Cars and Coffee at the University of Western Australia. Now, it's probably one of the biggest events held in Perth once a month of any description. And it's hardly known outside the world of classic cars. Okay. So we have the people that rock up Classic Cars and Coffee, about 800 to 1,000 cars are displayed for 2 hours at the University of Western Australia on the first Sunday of the month. That's a bunch of cars. Mm-hmm. But probably somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 people come to walk around and look at them. Every month. And they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for men's charities, Beyond Blue and prostate cancer and that sort of stuff. But I think the success of that event is more to do with mental health. Okay. Because a lot of sad old guys, sandals and lots of pens in their top pocket, it's their main social outing for the month.
Right.
So you have I personally can't walk 10 meters without stopping and making fun of someone. Okay. I don't get to see all the cars because there's too much chatting going on.
Right.
It is a wonderful, wonderful event and a really important part of men's mental health in Perth, I believe.
Is that mostly men in your demographic, though, Simon?
No, I think the JDM section, which is the same day, same place, but on a different car park at university.
Okay.
Mainly younger guys.
Okay.
And by 10 or 20 years. And my sort of spread would be, I'd say, from 40 to 80.
Okay.
That's the spread and you get everything there. And you've now got the guy that owns those online casinos. He brings 6 supercars, McLarens, Lamborghinis, Paganis, you name it. He brings them en masse, and the kids go you have to hold people back. And he does things like he revs them in the car park like, and the crowd go crazy.
Right.
Literally mad for this stuff. Leaves me a bit cold, though.
I'm curious, too, as well as the nostalgia, whether Western Australia has its own particular taste in cars. I'm thinking of Australian classics that I remember from my youth. I think we were talking about the Tirana before we started recording, the Holden Sandman, the Kingswoods. Are these classics because we love those cars, or is it the whole Australianness, the whole image that comes with them that we like?
Earlier we touched on that a nation's personality is displayed through certain things, house design, architecture, furniture, fashion, food. There's so many ways that one expresses themselves. And Australia, you go back to the golden age, because we don't produce any cars now, zero. So you go back to the golden age, we had essentially a 5-seater car with a very basic 6-cylinder engine, a lot of space around it. It wasn't too big, and it wasn't too small. It was kind of like the Australian ethos. We weren't as flash and big as the Yanks, and we weren't as small and mean and cold as the Poms, And so we were sort of somewhere in the middle. Those cars they're called chrome bumper cars now, that sort of movement, because it describes the era, whereas no cars have chrome bumpers today. And there's a massive movement for those, and it does spread. I've got a friend who's just restored his father's HQ Holden, which I think is 1972, and he's probably in his mid-50s, and he's just restored his dad's car because it's highly nostalgic, and he drives it around, and it's a thing he loves.
You can see those cars becoming collector cars because I remember in the late 80s, 90s, you'd see them, they were so run down.
Yes.
They're obviously, they were a yellow sticker waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas about 10 years ago, I'd see them again and they'd be beautifully painted, beautifully manicured and clearly engine running in top shape.
One of the things about the classic car movement is the sociability of it. There's a huge amount of, you've got a common purpose, like you might be trying to restore something, which means talking to people about how to do things, tracking down parts, scrounging through junkyards and people's garages to try and find bits to make something whole again. That's a highly social thing to be doing. And it's also intellectually stimulating. You're learning about the principles of hydraulics, compression, suppression, suspension. These are all physics terms that you have to learn about in sort of in a freelance sense. So
it's giving your life purpose.
It does. It gives a lot of people purpose.
Yeah.
And also it's recycling.
That's true. Very environmentally friendly, which is not something we often think of.
Yes.
When we think of cars. I guess I'm interested. We've talked about a lot of very good cars, but I know there are cars that perhaps are more known for their quirks than their flaws and become collector's items because of that. For example, the first car I ever owned was a Fiat Nicky, which is, tiny little car with a lawnmower engine. I bought it for $500. It was on sale for $1,000, but it broke down while I was test driving it, so it knocked $500 off.
It was a Nicky, was it?
It was a Fiat Nicky.
So it wouldn't have been a Fiat Nicky.
No,
it was a Lada Nicky.
That's right.
And so Lada was a Russian manufacturer of cars, and they bought the presses and the mills and all that sort of stuff for other people's cars when they became obsolescent.
That's right, and it very much felt like a communist vehicle.
Yeah.
Yes. But I saw one in the car park on the weekend.
Highly desirable now.
And I know, and I went up and talked to the guy, and there were thousands and thousands.
Oh, yes. But what people do, because we have mischievous minds as humans, they put high-performance motorcycle engines in them.
Right.
And that really wakes them up.
Okay.
So if you've got a modern Hayabusa engine, I'm not sure what they put out, but it'd be 180 horsepower or something, rev line of 14,000 revs, whereas your Nicky would have put out 25 horsepower.
Something like that.
And had a red line of, say, 5,000. Yeah. Asthmatic would be the way to describe it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
So anyway, people are doing that sort of stuff. They're doing it with smart cars as well. The Mercedes-Benz had a go at
souping them up.
Souping them up with motorcycle engines.
Okay.
And they're incredible.
But are there other examples of cars that were not at all desirable, but were quirky enough to become collector's items?
Once again, it's the definition of desirable, but P76 is described as a lemon.
The Leyland.
The Leyland P76, which is Australia's, the fourth manufacturer would have been BMC, British Leyland. So you had Chrysler at the time, Ford, and General Motors, and then they tried to, BMC tried to win back a lot of this market. The car itself was genius, really good. But what happened was it had an aluminium 4-litre V8 designed by Repco. A guy called Phil Irving had a hand in it. So instead of a cast iron V8, highly inefficient, it was this whole thing was aluminium. So it's much lighter, revved better. There's so many benefits. But what happened was at the time, the manufacturers, GM, Chrysler, and Ford, cut off their supply chain. So if you're a manufacturer of a gearbox, say you're Borg-Warner, and you've had this contract with Ford and Chrysler and GM for years, and then all of a sudden you're now supplying somebody else, politics comes into it. And that was part of the P76 was a much better car than it was ever given credit for. There's talk of even some of the parts that were supplied were inferior on purpose.
Okay.
They really had a hard boat to row.
Right, but it's now recognised as
and
being
they
something special.
And
Okay.
And I've driven a V8 P76, really fun car.
Okay.
Yeah, but they
hard to find.
They are hard to find, and quite a few of them are racing now too against Holdens and Fords and Chryslers.
I'm interested in how that fits in the racing circuit and the classic car circuits.
Huge.
Is that big here?
Yeah, massive.
Okay.
Particularly,
where does that happen?
We've got several racetracks. It happens in several sort of levels. There's club sport, which is guys like me who join a club, and then the club runs an event several times a year. And it can be a rally where you've got pace notes and you're reading stuff, or it can be a time trial at a racetrack such as Carco in Wanneroo Park Raceway. We've got a racetrack in Collie, which is mainly sort of a tear down. It's a more amateurish sort of racetrack. And there's talk of one being built at Burswood, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so right in the city. So you'll have the V8 supercars race at Wanneroo Park, but they won't race in Collie. A lot of club stuff happens in Collie, and a lot of that's old clubs. So you've got the Triumph Club, the MG Club, the Austin Healey Club, Mini Club. All these cars have a following, and they all gather together and drink beer and talk about them.
Right, after the driving, obviously.
Oh, yeah, after
yes.
the driving, yes.
Let's stick with that, the car racing.
Yep.
So you've got a classic car. It's a collector's car. And then you're driving it very fast around a track with lots of other classic cars. I don't see how that goes together. This thing you really love, you're then putting it in the most risky possible situation.
Truth is, and I had a Mark I Lotus Cortina that I used to run at Wanneroo Park in Historics. And then before that I had a Cortina GT, which I ran in Historics as well, and I ran Formula Ford as well. And the truth is, when you're racing, all the cars are going in the same direction. So that's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's very defined. And you've got people that are paying high attention to what they're doing.
Right.
So this is another good thing. You've got cars which are meticulously prepared, but not only that, they're checked through scrutineering. So if you've got tyres which aren't up to standard, you've got brakes, you've got issues, your car's leaking oil, you just won't get to race.
Okay.
So that somebody's checking. Now, you're quite right. There's a racetrack in England called Goodwood, which is in West Sussex.
I love watching those clips.
I do too.
Yes.
Anyway, so those cars, I've just watched it recently, where several Ferraris that are worth in the, not a million, but tens of millions of pounds were bingled. And it's like, but these guys also have very deep pockets, really deep pockets. And so I can't think of the owner of the car which was bingled, but it's some industrialist.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, we'll fix it. It's as simple as that. It's just money.
It still hurts to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down the scale, and you've got minis. And there's a series now for this little car called an A30 Austin.
Okay.
Like in Wallace and Gromit, Wallace has an A30 van, if that's wondering what it looks like, okay? So little sedans, and they race those. But even to prepare them for racing, it's £30,000-40,000 to get one of those on the track and race it.
So you're not going to race it unless you've got
you've got some bucks.
The wallet to back you up. One major change we're seeing on the roads is the arrival of EVs and hybrids. Are any of these cars going to end up with classic status down the track? What do you think?
My theory, by Simon. That's all it is. My theory. I believe that none of them will.
Why is that?
Because they're commodities. They're not in any way special. They're appliances. They're the equivalent of a fridge or a microwave. And that's why. And now, that's my opinion. And I am a bit of a caveman, and I like to go in my cave and I like to burn things. And I particularly like to burn petrol inside an internal combustion engine.
Okay.
I particularly like that style of power delivery. Whereas electric engines the modern car is incredibly efficient. 100% of its torque's deliverable within the first 6 inches, sort of thing. It's like bang, instantaneous torque, which is the thing that accelerates cars forward. They're just so boring. And they just do everything really, really well.
Yeah. There's no quirks. There's no
nothing
character
to fall in love with.
Right.
There's nothing to fall in love with.
Okay. But the thing that you've said there that I wonder about is whether it's cars becoming disposable, whether, as you say, the internal combustion engine has remained pretty much stable for more than 100 years. The EV engines are changing so quickly. Are they going to be like a phone that you upgrade every couple of years?
I've done a bit of reading and I listened to far too much on the topic. And what I believe, the whole concept of transport is on the cusp of a massive change. And the whole idea of owning a car, you won't own a car. Right. You won't even buy one. You'll pay a license to use a car which is somewhere close to you. So 3 streets away, somebody might have come home in a car, and you now want to go to the theatre, and so you get your phone out, and you go, doo-doo-doo-doo, and next thing you know, the car will arrive at your front door, and the two of you, in privacy, you and your partner, will go out. Mm-hmm. You don't even drive it. You don't store it. You don't service it. You just pay a license fee to use it. I'm not a fan of any particular brand of electric car, but this is where I think Tesla have a real advantage, is in their robot-controlled cars.
The driverless cars.
And the driverless cars, and then the whole model of car ownership. So a car might be used by 20 different people in a day. And once upon a time, there was this, the whole imagery around cars, I believe, has changed. Like you would pay more to get a fancy car because it was like a Rolex watch or a beautiful Prada pant outfit or a handbag. It's a statement. That whole thing is, I think, dying now. Also, I'm suspicious we might be entering a period of hard times, and it's not such a good thing to be driving around in your Bentley Turbo, It might be different. So I think the whole model of car usage, particularly car ownership, is changing. We'll be users of cars, not owners of cars.
Interesting. So car owners are going to become like the vinyl collectors of the music world. Everyone else is streaming, but they still want to own the physical object.
And I dig vinyl.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
The other thing is, sorry to interrupt, the electric car fleet will become the biggest battery in the nation. So if they're collecting and recharging through sunlight, and we've got plenty of that stuff, during the day, they all get parked at night time, and that's a battery, one massive battery divided up, because the amount of power that's in a car will easily run a house. Easily. So these electric cars will become batteries for the grid.
Okay.
I also believe that.
So the nature of transport will change. We won't be car owners, we'll be car borrowers or licensors.
Yeah.
So where does that mean that all cars on the market are going to become potential collector's items?
No.
No?
No, because if a car is mainly seen as a utilitarian thing, like a scrubbing brush, well, you're not going to fall in love with it. But the sexy purse, you might just want to keep that for your kids, because it's something about it. It's craftsman built. Somebody thought about it a lot. There's something attached to it which makes it intrinsically more desirable, and you somehow resonate with it in some way. And that's kind of like me and motorbikes.
I can understand that. I just thought that given the role that nostalgia plays in our attachment to classic vehicles, whether in 20 years' time, the next generation who have never got to own a car just think that any car is just purchase having your own car. It doesn't matter what it is, whether that itself is a desirable object.
I've 2 sons. One of them's 21, and he's just got himself a Nissan Patrol 2012. It's a big beast of a thing. And he's so in love with it. He's doing things to it all the time, and he never keeps anything clean except this car.
Right.
And so he's dead into it. My 25-year-old son hasn't even got his license. He's been living in Melbourne for a couple of years, that whole funky lifestyle, inner city. What do I want a car for? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't. Mm-hmm. So he never got around to getting his license. I don't know if he ever will. And there's a whole generation of people that have been brought up on computer games, the whole concept of cars being desirable things just doesn't exist.
Interesting. Well, for those people that are wanting to pick up a future classic, something that's on the road now, something that's affordable, what should they be looking for?
They should be looking for things that other people want.
Okay.
And so they're success stories. So they're things like Mazda MX-5s. I've only owned one Mazda MX-5, and I get why they're so sought after, and that's the world's most popular sports car. Mm-hmm. Even to this day, that's a run of nearly 40 years. It's amazing. There are cars that are legendary because there's something about them, and the car I'm thinking about is the Ford Falcon, the last series before Ford closed down in Geelong. They have an engine which roots go back to the 1950s. It's an Australian straight six engine. And our engineers, which are really proud of Australian engineering, managed to turn this humble six-cylinder, I think it was 200 cubic inch engine, and it went right through to becoming a 4-litre engine that the Americans come to Australia to try and find in junkyards because it is one of the world's greatest engines, and that's the Ford Barra.
Okay.
And that appears in things like the Falcon XR6, the BA around the 2000s. And it was our Australian engineers that built this thing. And the reason they can produce as much as 1,000 horsepower out of one. This is monumental, massive amounts of. And people get, particularly young men, get very excited about 1,000 horsepower.
Sure.
So, and they're even, like I said, they're even sought in America. So those cars that have those engines will always be desirable because they've got a Barra.
Okay.
And then the late Commodores. By the time the Ford Falcon and the Commodore had finished their production run, they were really great cars. The Falcon FE6 and the XR6, nicely trimmed, beautiful. That beautiful Barra straight six engine. They managed to get them more efficient by this stage because everything's getting better. Monitoring of fuel injection, timing, valve cam timing, all these things go. The technology goes into making an engine more efficient. Had started to become really good, and then you've got the all aluminium LS and LT. I think it is the current aluminium V8 which was in the Commodore. Amazing engine. Weighs nothing, and they call the equivalent that Toyota make is the Lexus V8, and they say that Toyota spent $1 billion designing the Lexus V8 engine, and it could rev between like 100, very very low revs, right through to its absolute maximum with a 50-cent piece stood upright on it, so no vibration.
Wow.
Anyway, the nickname for those is the Power Cube. And now, because it's just a cube, it's a small engine, the dimensions of it are small, and people put them in many other cars. So what I'm saying is anything that's got this Lexus engine in it, which is some Toyotas, they go into Land Cruisers too, will be desirable by virtue of this aluminium Power Cube V8. And then you look at the Ford, which is the Barra straight six engine. Amazing. Incredible achievement, what the Australian engineers did with that, but it was all too late.
Right.
The whole car market had changed.
So you're talking there about something that's become a classic because of the performance, because it can be trusted even years on. With cars that perhaps don't have the performance angle but have the mystique, perhaps they're connected to the Mini connected to the Italian job, or for example,
The Mini's a great example.
A moment of the pop culture. Is it worth collecting something even if it's got a lot of kilometres on the clock?
Yeah. So what's happening now is early Corollas, early Datsun 1600s, early 180Bs, if they're in good nick, and you find these sort of cars in garage or carports at retirement homes, Toyota Crowns, these are late 60s, mid 70s sort of cars, highly desirable. And people are paying really good money for them because they represent a whole era. They're high integrity. They're not. Japanese were really, really trying at that stage. It was like export or die, and they were producing a really good product.
I remember my Hungarian grandmother driving a Datsun, and I just thought it was the daggiest car I'd ever seen, but it's had this renaissance.
Yeah.
It's become a classic.
Indeed, but mainly on condition. So you don't want to spend $20,000, $30,000 restoring a car that's worth 10. That just doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
But you would pay $15,000 because you now don't have to spend $30,000 restoring it to find a really good one. Okay. And this week I looked at a 72 Toyota Crown, and it's like a time warp. It's just like it's been cryovac and put away somewhere and got out. And I was lusting after it.
It never goes away.
Oh, no, it never goes away.
I suppose in terms of restoration, I mean, as you say, it's not worth spending 10 grand on a car that isn't going to be worth that. You've done this. What are some common mistakes people make when they're trying to pick up a classic car?
The first thing you should always do, it's basic business. You should always think that you're not going to own it forever. So you must think, who's going to buy this from me? And that's why we started off talking about the early T-Series
The
MGs.
cars from the 30s.
Yeah, and the market for them is just dead now. No, it's not there. So it's really hard to unload those cars. I watch the British auction sites, which in Britain and the United States are the two places where you'll have the biggest auctions in the world. Now, Bonhams ran an auction recently at Goodwood, and I think it was Goodings ran one at Ascot only about 5 days ago. And now the sales on those cars, they only cleared 40% of the entire stock, several hundred cars, which means 60% unsold. And a lot of surprises in that, things like E-Type Jaguars, Mark II Jaguars, stuff you would have thought would have sold, just not. People are keeping their hands in their pocket. Right. And I think that's partly to do with the whole disposable income and the car thing, but also demographics. The people were buying E-Types. Now, I think E-Types came out in 62 from memory. I was probably 3 or 4 or 5 when the E-Type was around, and I really want an E-Type. But if I'm not going to buy an E-Type in my 80s. And a lot of the guys, when the E-Types came out, who could afford them now, just won't buy them. Right. They're too low. It's another complication. So there's a certain energy level you have to be an enthusiast by virtue of the word enthusiast for anything. Okay. Whether it be rock collecting, you've got to be enthusiastic about rock collecting. Well, it's the same with cars. You've got to have some energy for it.
You've got to be able to get down on the beach and pick up the rocks.
Thank you. Yes.
So for younger people, now's a good time to pick up an E-Type Jag. Is that what you're telling me?
Soon it will be really good.
Okay.
And I recommend they do.
That away. Yeah.
If you've never driven an E-Type, it's one of life's great joys.
Going back to cars that are on the road now, when was the last time you saw a modern car, new release car, and thought, that'll be worth a fortune in 20 years?
BMW used to be the masters of their slogan was pure driving pleasure. That was the logo. And their main engineer of a brand called M Sport, was poached by Hyundai to add life and to sexy up, add luster to their cars. So you've got a whole lot of Hyundais now and Kias that are basically have come under the design philosophy which was synonymous with BMW for all those years. So he basically left Germany, went across to Korea, but a lot of these design studios exist in California, but Korean companies. So whereas BMW today is kind of flailing, Hyundai are now releasing all these, I think it's the N30i. That's a hot hatch. Now, the hot hatch for years was always the Golf GTI. Now, the Golf GTI is getting a bit fat, and it's getting a bit podgy, it's sluggish, and it's too heavy, whereas the N30i is sharp and crisp, so the enthusiasts are buying those cars and forgetting the Golf. The old one was the GTI, but then they refer to them as Rs now. So the whole series of interesting or hot Volkswagens are Rs. So you've got R whatever, and the biggest one now, I think it's called an R36.
Okay.
So it's changing. The world is literally changing.
So it's the Hyundai. You put your money on that.
I would buy an N30i as a brand new car. Also the Kia Stinger. Now the police use Kia Stingers to pull over bad guys. And they have a good-looking car, incredibly good-looking. I mean, a lot of these Oriental cars were awkward for years. You'd look at them and go, what? What were they thinking? Not now, not anymore. Things like BYDs. There's I can't think of the name of it, but there's like this year I think we'll have 20-something Chinese car manufacturers come to Australia. There's 50-something currently car manufacturers in China. Right. And here it is. You heard it on this show first, folks. I predict that all the major car companies will go broke in the next 5 years. So I think Mercedes-Benz will pack up. Mercedes-Benz might cling on. Definitely, I think BMW will pack up.
Under the weight of the Chinese competition?
Yes, unquestionably.
Why is that?
Well, they're doing it so much cheaper and so much better. When you start to look at the American car industry, I mean, it's like a rust belt. They haven't spent money on their factories. They haven't spent money on updating their designs. They've just relied on a captive market, essentially. The progress of the Chinese car industry started off as mimicking other manufacturers, and they were awful. But they invested heavily in the process of manufacturing and supply chain. Now, at the moment, the supply chain is revolving around electric batteries. They control the electric battery world. So by virtue of that and all the rare minerals in China, Australia, Africa, around the world is essentially controlled by China. And that's one of the fears that America has at the moment, because they need these rare earths to build circuit boards and things and whatever for fighter jets and aircraft carriers and all of this. But what's happened now is the Chinese factories are light years ahead of what we have in the Western world, and they don't employ many people. It's all robotized. So, and China will not export robots, but they're the world's best maker of robots, because that's for manufacturing. So the world is changing. I think we won't have Ford, we won't have General Motors. Chrysler definitely is on its deathbed now. Volkswagen, massive problems at the moment. And I think, the world, you'll basically have a series of Chinese brands.
Interesting. So all of those non-Chinese brands will be collector's items. They'll all be...
Look, for people like me,
extinct museum pieces. Yes.
Yes, if people are indeed interested in cars per se.
Yeah.
And I don't know they will be. It's really, really interesting. I don't see it as good or bad. It's just evolution. And I really think this modern crop of Chinese cars that we're getting, the most recent one I've heard, I'm trying to think of the name of the brand, I'm thinking Inoxa, where you swap the battery. So you buy the car, but you never own the battery. You pay a license to use the battery. So you pull into, and there are these, I'm sure I've got the name of the type of car wrong, but essentially they've got the recharging station. So you pull in, they swap your battery, you drive out. This is like a 2-minute job.
Yeah.
Quicker than fueling up.
Yeah.
You never own the battery, so you've got no risk. One of the things about electric cars is nobody wants to be the last guy owning it.
Sure.
Because they're worth nothing. Because it's like...
well, it's like the iPhone thing. You don't want an iPhone that's 5 years old.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's not... Batteries have a life. Yeah. And you don't want to be buying a car that's only got a year left in it. And that year will be problematic. So, the world is changing.
Interesting.
Dramatically.
Now, we started talking about your own passion for cars. Let's finish up there. What's one car you wish you'd held on to?
1979, a guy called Peter Brock won a race called the Hardy-Ferodo 1000. He was driving a car called a Tirana A9X. And it's a 1,000-kilometre long race, okay? So he managed to get through practice on pole position, which means he started the race first. And he's got no shortage of competition. Everybody wants to win the race. He ran the entire race in first position, never lost first. And on the last lap, after driving for 1,000 kilometres, he sets the lap record after driving 1,000. It's absolute dominance. Wow. Now, I had one of those, and I sold it. Because for me, life's like a smorgasbord, and I want to taste everything on the smorgasbord. And that was a mighty car. Sounded good, looked good, handled beautifully. I won the HSV championship, the touring day at Wanneroo Park in that car. And the Swines wouldn't give me my trophy because it was a Holden dealer team car, which is a designation HDT, and their club was the HSV, Holden Special Vehicles, and the Swines wouldn't give me my trophy.
Really?
I'm not.
You were disqualified.
Yeah, well, I wasn't disqualified. Oh, okay. I won it on the stats, but because I wasn't a HSV
ineligible.
car. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I'm in therapy and it's okay.
Yeah. You've moved on.
I've moved on.
Right.
I've got a nasty twitch, but I'm okay.
And a continuing motorcycle addiction.
Yeah.
Simon.
What do you know?
It's been great talking cars, future classics, past classics, all kinds of cars
Anytime.
With you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Your pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked this episode, let us know and share it with a friend. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode of RAC's Horizons podcast.